Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to a new sort of different type of stream I'm doing. Well, not sort of, it's actually entirely different. Normally what I do on this channel is I do leak code questions, and so far I've been having a ton of fun doing that, but I mainly wanted to try something new, and that's exactly why I'm doing this today. I don't expect for these videos to be as long as their leak code counterparts, but at least in the meantime, we can just try something new for fun, see how people like it, and if they do like it, I might decide to do it more often. Now, like I said, this is not something I plan on doing daily. This is probably something that I'll just do whenever I feel like doing, because these are probably going to be a little more complex, a little longer perhaps, maybe not for these first couple of ones, but the more of them that we keep doing, the more complex that they will become. So what is it exactly that I'm trying to do? If you've seen my leak code streams, you know that I do my leak coding in JavaScript. And a lot of people have asked me why I do JavaScript. And really the main reason I do JavaScript is, well, because I program in JavaScript. I mainly program using Angular and TypeScript at work. I'm typically a front-end developer, I would say. I lean more front-end, although I like working full stack. But I thought it would be cool to start up a new series called With Vanilla. And in this With Vanilla series, what I'm going to be doing is just going through a series of different projects that will be implemented using just HTML, CSS, and vanilla JavaScript. No frameworks, not even TypeScript, unless the audience really wants me to go in that direction. But what I'm hoping to do with this is just really have fun with it. Hopefully you all learn something new. I'd love to get the audience involved and see what you all think. But in reality, it's me just trying something new. Let me go ahead and open this just to make sure everything sounds right. See what you all think. Okay, that sounds good. So I think it sounds good. I thought I heard like an echo for a second. Let me just, how can I, let me just like, so I think it sounds good. Oh, I think it's because I'm also, let me see. I really just want to make sure it's not, yeah, I think it's because I'm hearing it from my headset, and I'm also hearing it from the YouTube live as well. Maybe I can change that in my stream settings. Yeah, let me actually do that real quick, because I really don't want I don't want, okay, let me see now how it sounds. I really just want to make sure it's not, okay, sweet, that sounds all good now. Okay, so without further ado, what exactly am I going to be doing? There's this repo called App Ideas by a developer or a user called FlorinPop17. And he has taken the time to create this amazing repo. You can see it has many stars. There's a lot of people watching it, a lot of different forks. And what he does is he breaks up all these different projects into different tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. He has a whole list of tier 1 projects, a whole list of tier 2 projects, and a whole list of tier 3 projects. Really what my goal is to do is to make a live stream for each one of these different projects. We'll upload the code to my own GitHub repo, which as you can see is completely empty right now, and I'll also link it to this stream. So hopefully that way people watching, people that are interested in front-end development can see how I try and do this with vanilla JavaScript. I'm not gonna, like, the point is not necessarily for me to teach you vanilla JavaScript. You might already be hearing this and think like, oh, he's gonna be saying the same thing he says in LeetCode, where my intention is not to teach. It's really not. It's just for me to show you how I approach different problems, and hopefully we'll all learn something new as we go along. So with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. I'll try and explain everything I'm doing as I go along, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to open up Visual Studio. And let's see what I have here. Okay, I have some code here from one of my websites for LeetCode. I'll go ahead and open a new folder here. I'll call this one With Vanilla. Let's go ahead and open this. What I want to do is I want to initialize this thing as a Git repo. So I'll just do git init. I'll clear all that out. I'll just put a basic README inside of here. README MD. I think what I called this was, did I even give it a description or anything like this? Can I see it if I go here with vanilla? We can just call it something simple. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. So let's just make this with vanilla front-end projects using vanilla JavaScript. Okay, cool. What I want to do here to make things easier is I'll go ahead and create a tier 1 folder And inside of tier 1, I'll keep the code of everything that we do. So this first one's called bin to deck. So I'll also call this one, like inside of tier 1, I'll say bin to deck. Sounds good to me. Okay, sweet. So why don't we go ahead and read the prompt and let's see exactly what it is that we're supposed to be doing here. So this is a tier 1 question. It says, binary is the number system all digital computers are based on. Therefore, it's important for developers to understand binary or base 2 mathematics. The purpose of bin2deck is to provide practice and understanding of how binary calculations. I think probably they meant to say binary calculations work. Maybe I'll open up a PR for this later. Bin2deck allows the user to enter strings of up to 8 binary digits, zeros and ones, in any sequence and then displays its decimal equivalent. This challenge requires the developer implement it following these constraints. So we have that arrays may not be used to contain the binary digits entered by the user, and determining the decimal equivalent of a particular binary digit in the sequence must be calculated using a single mathematical function, for example, the natural logarithm. It's up to you to figure out which function to use. So we have different user stories, which this is one thing I really like. And I think something to make it easy for us, because it'd be nice to also have the same sort of tracking ourselves. So let's do this. Let me make this off screen. Well, not off screen. What I want to do is I almost want to create a README for bin2deck. So let's create another README inside of here. And what we can do is inside of here, we'll do the same thing. We'll say, let's say like project link. We'll say that our user stories, I want to copy the same thing because it's going to help us keep track of what we have to do. So I think if I just copy these and I do this, let me see. I think I should be able to do, I think this would work. If this doesn't work, then, you know, we'll figure out how to do it. We'll make it look nice afterwards. Yeah, I don't remember if it's like this or if it's like this. I think this will be fine. But after each one of the different user stories are done, we'll go ahead and check the box off just to make sure everything sounds good. Let me again make sure. Like, the point is not. Okay, cool. Sorry if you heard some background audio. I was just again trying to make sure that the audio and everything sounded fine on the live stream. And then of course we have our bonus features down here. So it's just put here. User can enter a variable number of binary digits. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. So user can enter up to 8 binary digits in one input field. So that sounds good so far. So what I want to do is to get started. There's a really nice plugin for VS Code called Go Live. Actually, it's called Live Server. And the nice thing about Live Server is if you come from like the Node world, you might know of a program called like NodeMon, or you might be using some like hosted server, like not hosted server, but your own small server like HTTP server or something like this. So Live Server is an extension that you can just run directly from VS Code, and it makes it so as we're writing our code, the browser just refreshes for us automatically. So it makes for a very quick workflow. That's exactly what I'm going to be using. So if you don't already have that, it's called Live Server. When you install it, you'll see a little button down here on the right, which I'm looking at the stream now, and I just want to make sure it looks, there you go. You'll see a little button here on the bottom right that says Go Live. That's going to help you start that server. So inside of bin2deck, let's go ahead and create index.html. I know I'm going to need that, and I know we're going to need some JavaScript, so index.js. Now, in VS Code, you can actually just click the exclamation point, and you're going to get a nice HTML5 compliant scaffold of the code. It's one of my favorite shortcuts to use. It just makes things, it gives you like a very nice base to work from. You don't even have to worry about memorizing any of this. If you want for me to explain what some of these things mean, or if you want me to do more research on either of them, I think we can. But I think this is a good place to start. So again, for anyone just joining in now, that's going to be a single exclamation point. It actually uses this extension in the background, which now comes with VS Code. I remember this used to be something you'd have to install yourself. But you just click on this, and you get, again, this nice HTML5 compliant sort of baseline to start off with. We'll give this a title of bin2deck. And then I'm just going to go ahead and like immediately link to my JavaScript file. So I'm going to give this a source of index.js, and I'm going to say defer here. Now you might already be wondering, if you're not used to seeing this sort of syntax here, a lot of times people see the script loaded right at the end of the body tag. The reason is, maybe let's go over why is the script tag at the end of the body to begin with if it's not in the head. As your page is being parsed, all the HTML is being parsed sort of like sequentially. It doesn't try and do the JavaScript until it gets to the JavaScript. And actually when it gets to the JavaScript, it sort of moves to parsing the JavaScript and then comes back to your HTML. So if you have JavaScript in between HTML, for example, let's say you have this and then you have this. If in this JavaScript you try to access the paragraph tag, it's not going to be found because this JavaScript actually comes before the P tag. So that's one reason why you might see JavaScript tags, script tags at the end of the body. That way we can be sure that the entirety of the body has been parsed before we try and do anything with our HTML. However, there's a newer attribute that you can use inside of HTML called defer. And what that does is it essentially defers the loading of the JavaScript. Actually, if we look at it here, let's see. So scripts with the defer attribute will prevent the DOM content loaded event from firing until the script has loaded and finished evaluating. So it actually wait for the HTML to be parsed before we even try to do anything with the JavaScript. So it's just another nice way of including your JavaScript. You can kind of keep all the meta information up here, and it just, I think, makes your code look very clean. Okay, so now we have our HTML, and we also have our body. So let's go ahead and start writing some more HTML. So it looks here like we're going to need to have just a normal input field. So I think what I'd like to do is let's just go ahead and do that, right? What I want to do is I want to create a label, and I also want to create an input. I'm creating a label just because it's good for accessibility. The label makes it nice to get focus on your input, and it makes it easy for things like screen readers to be able to call out things on your page. And also, of course, for a human reading it, it makes it easy to identify what the input is for. So I'll give this an ID of binary, and I'll give this for binary. And over here, we'll say something like binary input. Okay, so we have something like this. I have the prettier extension, by the way. So if you see that when I save, things kind of move on their own lines, I just want to let you know that's why, because I have that extension. So let's go ahead and inside of the go live extension, let's go ahead and click this. And you can see now it says the server started at port 5500. And now you can see that we have this input right here. I want to go ahead and remove all this save data because it's just annoying. And this is already sort of getting us to complete this project, right? We have our binary input, and now we want to start being able to get input from a user. So it says a user can input up to 8 binary digits in one input field. So let's see. What I want to do is we know it's going to be 8. So I think one thing I'd like to do is scope it to just be minimum, or rather a maximum of 8, right? This is a nice attribute that we can use directly on the input. I like to keep things alphabetized, so I'm actually going to move this down here right before the text. So we have ID, max, and type. So let's start typing some things and see. So 1010, 1010. So we're still able to continue going. Let's see, max 8. Surprised it's actually letting us go over that. So input ID max 8. Perhaps I'm not using this attribute correctly. So mdn input max. Oh, is this just the maximum value? Oh, but I want like maximum amount of characters. I'm pretty sure there's a way to do that. Let's see, maximum amount of characters in input HTML. Max length, that's the one I'm looking for. Okay, so max length is equal to 8, so it's come back 1010, 1010. Okay, cool. Now I'm trying to actually enter more characters and I'm not able to. Now, one thing that I would like to do is, like, if I'm reading this number, normally when I read binary numbers, I know that the least significant bit is the one on the right. So if I'm reading this, I'm going to start from over here and be reading from right to left. So it seems kind of annoying that it's this way, because then I almost want to try and read it sort of like this, like from left to right. So it'd be nice if this thing started on the other side, and let's see how we can do that. There might be a couple of CSS things that we can do, but I also think that on the input, let's see what type of attributes we have on our input. I just want to go to MDN input. And over here, let's see attributes. I think there's one that's going to help us, perhaps. I think it's like direction or something. Dir name, form, alt. I don't want that one. Checked. Form action, height, min, name, placeholder. Probably what's happening is those other ones, maybe the direction attribute is like a global one. It's not specific to input, right? So it's not actually going to show here. Let's see. Let's look up like change direction of text in input HTML. You can use dir RTL on the import. So let's see on the import on the input. So I'm going to go over here. Let's say dir. Let's try RTL and see what that gives us. Okay. So 1, 0, still not exactly, like that's not still quite what I want. Because for example, if I put 0, 1, I would like for the 1 to come up on the left side of that 1. So is there any way that we can do that? And actually, if I do LTR, is that, yeah, LTR. Let's see. Oh, I think I accidentally, yep, okay. This is just an, okay, so that's gonna give it to us right to left. So let's see if we can, okay, so we have change direction. How do I change text direction? CSS. Right to left text, text align right, direction. ID foo for right alignment with a JavaScript handler on key up. And cursor position from right to left. What is this? Unicode biddy override? Let's see if we can use this. So because we're going to be messing with some CSS, let's go ahead and let's create an index CSS file. And let's make sure that we also link to that file. Come up over here. Now link to the index CSS. And let's see, I want to change the thing for binary. So I'm going to give this, actually I like to give things, let's give this a class. Call this binary. Binary. This one's called the Unicode biddy. Interesting. Biddy override. And since we're here, we might as well give direction RTL on this, and we can actually remove it as an attribute on this here. Let's see how this works. Oh, that's very cool. That's very, very neat. So now if I do 0, 1, right, sort of like how I would expect to be able to mess with this numbers. Yeah, that's very neat. I like that a lot. So a couple cool things that we're learning about here. I like that a lot. Okay, so now we have our binary input. I think that satisfies the first condition here, right? User can enter up to 8 binary digits in one input field. Okay, sweet. So I think we've completed, let's see, I think we've completed this first one here. Okay, nice. Now it says user must be notified if anything other than a 1 or 0 was entered. So because of that, it looks like I want to be able to give the user some sort of like output, right? I need a place for an output. I also need a place for like any error messages. Normally when there's an error message, I like to maybe give this input like some color, you know, and maybe some like extra text. But it says user must be notified if anything other than a 1 or 0 was entered. So let's think about this. I feel like using regex would be very nice for this, because that way I can just use a pattern to make sure that it's only ever a 0 or a 1 that I'm entering into this input. Now I believe that inputs, MDN input pattern, I believe that, yeah, the pattern attribute specifies a regular expression the form controls value should match. If a non-null value doesn't conform to the constraints set by the pattern attribute, the validity state object's read-only pattern mismatch property will be true. Okay, a lot of things to digest here, and I have used this API before, but I want to sort of show it to you, show you how it works. So now that we have our input, right, let's start actually getting input from there. So the first thing I want to do is I actually want to select this input in my JavaScript and then add an event listener for the input event and then log that input. So we'll create a new constant here. We'll call it binary input. I'll say document.getElementById with input. Inside of here, we'll do binary input, add event listener. I'm going to use the input event, and then from here, I'll just call console.log, and let's see what that gives us. I'm going to open up this again, and this time I will open up my DevTools. Let's see, reading add event listener, it didn't like that. Get element by ID, input, I think I called it binary, right? So that's a typo on my end. Let's start typing some stuff here and seeing what happens. So one of the really cool things about this, on this input event, we should see, like if we go to the target, which is the input itself, there should be a property called validity. Validity. Now validity, the type of object validity is called validity state. That's exactly what they're talking about here, right? Validity state. So it says the validity state interface represents the validity states that an element can be in with respect to constraint validation. Together, they help explain why an element's value fails to validate if it's not valid. So this right here is the important thing, the constraint validation. There's a whole entire, we can look up like constraint validation API. So check this out. The constraint validation API enables checking values that users have entered into form controls before submitting the values to the server. Certain HTML form controls like input, select, and text area can restrict the format of allowable values using attributes like required and pattern to set basic constraints. However, you may want to impose more complex constraints or to provide clear reporting of validation failures in the defaults. This can be done using the constraint validation API. So we already know what we need to do, right? We have all these different sort of things we can mess with. I think what I'd like to do, yeah, I'd like to use this pattern. This for me is, actually this right here is very important. We can already start using this. We're going to use this pattern almost to a T. The first thing I want to do is actually use a pattern. So let's go over here. Now, what I want to do is there's a website called Regexer. What type of pattern will I need for this? I guess I want any 0 or 1. And I think if I just do, let's see, 0, 0, 1, and if I do this one, that's any string. So as soon as I put a 2, okay, no, so it needs to just be 0, 1. I think I can just use the 0, 1 pattern right here and then do the rest. So let's do this. Inside of my HTML, I'll go over here. So in pattern, we'll go ahead and set 0, 1. Now, because this has actually gone past a certain length, it's going to create itself on a new line, which actually looks a little bit nicer. And now let's see. So input, name input, set custom validity, check validity, set custom validity, check validity. So what happens with check validity? Let me see what that one does. MDN check validity. Checks whether an element has any constraints at whether it satisfies them. If the element fails its constraints, the browser fires a cancelable invalid event and then returns false. What we can also do, it's a couple of things that we can do here. We can also say, we can just get the validity object ourselves, right? So the first thing I want to do is get the target from here. So we can actually use some destructuring to do this. We know that we're going to get an event here, right? For example, if I do something like this, I know that event.target is going to be my input. So I would like to just use destructuring here to just pick target off. Inside of here, we can get const validity equals target dot validity. And I think, well, let's see what this is, right? Validity console dot dir validity. Let's see what this gives us. Let's come back here. We get a validity state and pattern mismatch is true. Okay. So can we do validity dot pattern mismatch? If I just get that right there, here it can say is valid. So let's see, right now pattern mismatch is true. So if not pattern mismatch, let's see what this gives us right here. So 1 is true. So A is still true, which I don't like. That shouldn't be the case. So how can we make it false? So let's see. Perhaps the pattern I'm using is not correct. Let me open this up. HTML attribute pattern. Regular expression which the input value must match to pass constraint validation. It must be a valid JavaScript regular expression as used by the regex type and is documented in our guide on regular expression. Do we need to actually put... How does it want me to use it though? Do I need to put these slashes like I normally do? Pattern 0 through 9, pattern 0 through 1. If the values are too long or too short or contain characters that aren't true, the pattern mismatch will be true. Pattern mismatch. So if, let's see, pattern, oh wait a second here, pattern mismatch, right? So if pattern mismatch is true, it will only be valid, let's see, pattern mismatch false, exactly, if not target validity pattern mismatch. There you go. Sometimes you get confused about these things, but let's now try this again. So we have a 1 and now we have a false, and we actually continue getting false until, see, so we still get ones here. I would have liked if that actually still became true. Right, I only want this to be true once, but it looks like as soon as, oh, even here, I entered false, true, true, false, 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 false. Okay, so let's look more into that and see why that's happening. What is it that we're trying to fix right now? We're trying to figure out how to use this constraint validation API to make it so that this pattern is true. Okay, min length and max length, a pattern, 0, 1. I wonder if there's something else that I need to, does it want me to put the, like, I wonder if I do the plus, will that match the whole, string? 1, 1, 1, 1. A is false. True. Ah, there you go. That looks good. Okay, I think this is better now. So it looks like maybe I was only checking one token at a time, but this allows me to check the entirety of the string. So check this out. Like, it's true as long as I enter 1s or 0s, right? But as soon as I enter like an A, it becomes false. So at that moment, we can let the user know that they have entered something incorrectly. Okay, so now we have a way to actually know if it's false, right? Not if it's false, if it's valid or not. Okay, so based on that, what is it that I want to do? Let's see. It would be nice to give, like, maybe we want valid and invalid classes for our input. So anytime, let's actually start with that. So I know, let's see, how can we actually, can we take advantage of those classes? We might be able to, yeah. When true, the element matches the invalid CSS pseudo class. So I think actually if we have it in here, if I do binary invalid and actually do the same thing they have here, I'm going to actually copy the same class. Will this just work on its own? Oh, look at that. Now the outline, I can see that the outline is, it's a little bit annoying, although I know it's good for, you know, screen readers and accessibility, but if I just turn it off, yeah, it's gonna be a little nicer, so I kind of like that. I also want to turn off like spell check false, and I think autocomplete. Can I have it off? Just in case I don't want this to do any spell checking or auto completion, just to make it easier. So let me look at the README again. User must be notified if anything other than a 0 or 1 was entered. It probably would be good to let them know in some sort of span element or some paragraph element, right? Something like, maybe down here, we can put a paragraph. We can put, let's see, class error. And we can just leave it alone for now. And what we can do is anytime, let's actually go to our JavaScript and let's say const error output is document. Let's see, for this, I actually want to give this an ID. That way I can search it. Let's say ID error. Error output is document get element by ID error. Right, so if is valid, what we can do is we can say error output dot inner HTML. So we'll essentially just remove everything. Else we'll say error output dot text content. And you know what the coolest thing is here? I think the constraint validation API gives us text that we can use. It's actually very cool. So let me actually comment this out. Now we're gonna have to do something like right now we get target validity. Yeah, I actually want to see console.dir target.validity. I want to see what this gives us. Does this give me a message? Let me see. Constraint API, constraint validation API message. Let's see, invalid validation message. So properties of, so instead of validity, what if we have validation message? If I just do target here, is there actually validation message? Oh, wow, look at that. Please match the requested format. That's really, really nice. So we have a couple different things that we can do here, right? We have target, so we have is valid. We can also pool validation message is target dot validation message, right? And in here, we can say that if it's valid, we'll just completely clear the inner HTML. Else, we can set the text content to validation message. So if we do this, it says please match the requested format, and if we delete this, we completely leave it. So I think that's really cool. So far, let's do a quick recap on what we've done, right? We've used the constraint validation API to add a pattern to our input here, saying that we only want to consider zeros and ones for our binary input. And then anytime that fails, we can get this is valid constant here that we match against the pattern mismatch, which is one of the many different constraints we can match against. If it's valid, we just clear the inner HTML here. Else, we can just use the validation message that the API actually generates for us. So it's very neat. I really, really enjoy this. I'll make sure to leave links to some of these like higher level concepts that we've been using, but I really hope this is helping you all out, because when I was learning about all these things, it was a lot of fun, and just like being able to apply them to even projects of my own outside of this has also turned out to be very, very rewarding. Okay, so now we know when anything other than a 0 or 1 was entered. Now in a similar vein, right, what can we do? We have an error class. Why don't we just have something for output, right? And I'm only going to keep an ID on both of these because I'm not actually using that error class, at least not now. So just to kind of clean things up, let's go over here back to our JS, and let's say const output equals document.get element by ID. We'll call this output. Now we need to come up with a way to generate this value, right? So what's like the easiest way for us to do this? So let's think about it. I guess what we could do, it says that it doesn't want us to keep values in an array. Arrays may not be used to contain the binary digits entered by the user. Determining the decimal equivalent of a particular binary digit in the sequence must be calculated using a single mathematical function. Is there just like a single function that will take a string like that and just make it into a binary number or a decimal number? Let me think about this, because like assuming users are using this correctly, I guess I can always keep track of how how many digits have been entered so far. And based on the position, I can either add like a power of 2 or not. But that assumes that users are using the application as it's intended. Because if I just like click, oh, I could make this. Can you make it so that I can't like click on the input? Does that make any sense? Let me see. Prevent user from clicking on input. HTML. Can I do like no event? Prevent user from clicking on input. Prevent click event. Not prevent default per se. But also, I mean, if I disable, I feel like if I disable it, that's going to be, let's see. If I come over here, can we just do disabled? Yeah, that's not going to do anything, right? Let me see. Prevent user from modifying input HTML. So some other conditions have disable editing default value. You can use either the read only. The thing is, read only, I think it also, yeah. So what I was thinking, we can keep track of the position. Like if they enter one number, there's only been one number entered, and every single time they enter a new one, we just sort of add or subtract based on the first or last one. But I should be able to click anywhere and come up with that value. So I'm wondering if there's a quick way. Actually, can we use like a parse int? Can I use a parse int for binary? Can I do parse int 1002? Oh wow, that might be actually the easiest way of doing it. And I think it's a single. We're not keeping track of an array. We are keeping track of the text content, but I think that's expected. We need a way to actually get the input. So let's come down here and say output dot text content equals parse int of text dot value 2. I wonder if this will work. Text is not defined. Oh, did I do? Yeah, I meant to do target. 1, 3, 7, 15. Nan, sweet. My dog is playing with a toy. Apologies for the squeaky noise. But I have a golden retriever, and that's just how they are. They're very happy to be able to play with that stuff. So what I want to do here, I don't want this to say nan, right? What I would like to happen is output.text content. What we can do here is say, let's see, target.value. If there's something in target.value, we'll make it this, else we'll just make it 0. Is that going to be all right? Oh, and it can't also parse that. Now, this should only happen if it's valid, else. Yeah, we should only do this if it's valid, right? Let's try this out. So 1, 3, 0. Please match the requested format. And I guess here we can do a very similar thing where for both of these, if it's not valid, we should actually just, so let's see what happens here. We have 1, 1, 1, then we have A, then we go back to 7. So now we get this, right? In every single state, if it's valid, we'll show the valid state. Right now it's defaulted to 0, but we can add 1, 3, right? Go all the way to 255. Can start, but as soon as we enter like an A, it'll show please match the requested format. And if we remove this, now you'll see the digit that we should be at. So I believe this pretty much covers everything. Let me see. User views the results in a single output field containing the decimal base 10 equivalent of the binary number that was entered. All right, we can do this. Bonus features, user can enter a variable number of binary digits. I think for us to do this, all that we would need to do is just remove the max length. I think if we just do that, we should be able to go pretty high. Like really high. And look at this, it even formats it nicely for us and everything. So I think that's pretty neat. That essentially covers the, I would say, hardest part of all this. We can probably spend some time getting some styles in here, making things look a little bit nicer. I normally like doing things with like Google Fonts, for example. There's one that I like a lot. Let me see if it's still, I wonder if it shows up. I think it's Fira. Oh, not Contents, no, Google Fonts. Fira Sans. Yeah, I like this one a lot. Let me just open this here so it makes it easier to use. I don't want to download the family, but I just want to, here we go. Let's choose like a thin style. Let's do thin, let's do regular, and let's do black. I'm just gonna go ahead and import this. So we'll go back to our CSS here, and right at the top, we'll just go ahead and import that. Okay, yep, there shouldn't be any change yet. Go ahead and copy this, Fira Sans. I'll select this for the, we really should select it for the body, so I'll give the body a class of page. I'll come over here and say for page, apply this. Now things are looking just a little bit nicer. Inside of the input, we'll also need to make sure that our font family is the same here. So we get the nice font family like that. Anything else that we can do? I'm sure we can come up with other things, but I think in this point, it's not really as important. There's not really too much styling that I can do here to make it look any nicer. What we could do is maybe give this a header. Say something like binary to decimal converter, something like this, and that's already black for us. And I might even want to just create a horizontal divider there. I think that's fine. Something that would be nice would be for our H1 here. So let's give this a class of title. What I'm going to do here is under title, I'll say margin is 0. It would be really nice if I can get like similar space in between both these things. So right now, although it looks that way, are we getting any other? Yeah, I guess they're actually both just fine. What I might want to do is say for my rule here, horizontal, let's call that horizontal. Under here, maybe we can say margin 1 rem 0. This is a shorthand for top and bottom and also left and right. So let's do that. Gives us some nice margin there. MMD, make a subnet calculator. Use the CDN. Hey, perhaps, yeah, that could be something cool that we can do another time. I want to try to keep these a little bit scoped to, let me see, I earlier on, I was talking about this repo right here called App Ideas. This developer gives a really nice list of a ton of different projects that I hope to just work on during these live streams and show you all how to do all these things in vanilla JavaScript. I'll go ahead and upload all these to a repo, and you all can look at how I did it, and of course ask me questions, contribute to it, so on and so forth. So I'm going to keep it to that. And I think really with this, I'm pretty happy with this. I think it solves the question pretty well. We get all the user stories. We have the input format using constraint validation. So I think this is pretty neat. Yeah, very fun to work on this. I thought it was very cool. MMD, can I ask a big favor? Sure, yeah. If it fits within the scope of the stream, then sure. I think that could be fun to experiment with. Something I would kind of like to experiment with is actually doing unit testing. That's something that not very many people show how to do. And I think it'd be very cool to, that could be very cool to have, at least on a live stream. Could I give you a hand with learning more about programming? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, you can always ask me. I have like my email linked on my YouTube channel. You can send me things on there, and you can also just comment on my videos asking me whatever question you want, and I'll try my best to lead you in the right direction. So yeah, thanks a lot for that. I'm definitely open for that. Let me try and mess with this a little bit and see how we can emulate this, right? Am I gonna need to use, so like I know in React, let me see, there's the user event library, user event testing library, but can I get this for, let me see, JavaScript unit testing? Like what's, I guess it's like Jest. What is the best unit framework for testing? Benefits, popular, Jest. Let me see, testing of Angular, Vue.js, Node.js, Mocha. However, declining, complex setup. All right. Story, I don't want Storybook. Just Puppeteer, Ava, Playwright. I want like vanilla. Is this just fast and safe? Code coverage, easy mocking, great expectations. I think it'd be cool to do something like this because even like my girlfriend's also a developer and she always tells me how, you know, doing things with like unit testing is so complicated. And I really do think it is. Let me see if we can, I would like to like emulate typing. Let me see, just emulate or simulate input. If I can simulate input with Jest, is there a way to do that? You seem to have a bug in your input. Okay, that doesn't answer the question. Enzyme, input event, testing library. But this is all React. Let's see, enzyme. That's the thing, like, I don't know. Is there a way to do mock functions, testing asynchronous code, guides, snapshot, async, timer, webpack, DOM manipulation, DOM manipulation? Let's see. Create a test file, set up our document, module has a side effect, fetch current user, button, click, save dev, Jest environment, JS, DOM. Oh, is this like a, what is this for? To get started with the JS DOM environment. Also, the function being tested as an event listener on the button DOM element. So we need to set up our DOM correctly for the test. JS DOM in the Jest environment, simulate a DOM environment as if you were in the browser. JS DOM, let me see what this is here. I wonder if they give me like an easy way to set this up. That'd be really nice. The request failed while talking to the backend. Interesting. That's weird. JavaScript testing. JS DOM. Is there anything that we can look up for JS DOM? Let me copy this again and search it. So this here, DOM testing library, whether simulated, the main utilities, see using without Jest, install. If you're using a framework or a library such as React, okay, I don't want to use that. You can review the DOM testing library package JSON here. Example. It's just a raw example of setting up some DOM that we can interact with. Swap this with your UI framework of choice. Ada Lovelace, const container, get example DOM. Oh, so I need to create an actual DOM for me to be able to set up API, queries, or can we do events? Firing events. I really would like to try this out. Introduction. DOM node. nodes, whether simulated with JSDOM or just in the browser, a test runner or framework, what sheet void, okay, guiding principles, core API, DOM testing library, install. Now I wonder if, because I'm gonna need to have some other packages to handle like imports and stuff. No, it's all right, MMD. Yeah, sure, you can feel free to message me tomorrow. I'll try my best to help you out. Because I'm wondering, like, one thing that we could do instead of simulating anything is we could, because what's the main thing here, right? If it's valid, we could essentially abstract this into its own method, because then with that method, we can actually test. So I can say something like convert to decimal, and then inside of here, this will take my target. I'm very curious. I haven't actually done this too much, but let's just see if we can have fun with it, you know? Let's put this in there, and then I'll move all this into just that. Now, if we do this, if I refresh this, still be getting the same thing. Okay, that's all good. Now let's just look at how to just use jest, like vanilla jest. How this is funny because this is like vanilla JavaScript I'm teaching you all. Let's just do jest unit testing, get started. We're gonna go ahead and use npm. I think that's something we're gonna have to get used to. So inside of this directory, I'm gonna open up my terminal here. So documents, repos, with vanilla, we're gonna do tier 1, bin to deck. We're gonna npm init y this. Okay, we'll just get like a very standard npm init package. I think what we should do in here, let's create a git ignore, and then let's see, I should be able to do, I believe this should work, hopefully, but we'll see in a second. This is just so like any single node modules folder I don't want to include in my Git repo. Let's go ahead and install jest. If I'm going too fast, if there's things that you don't understand, please let me know. Please leave it in the comments. You know, I'm very interested in hearing what you all have to say, because I'm very open to changing my streams to accommodate you all. Okay, so it looks like this worked. Node modules is not there. Very nice. Okay, sweet. So let's get started by writing a test for a hypothetical function that adds 2 numbers. Okay, but this is Node.js land, right? I need to do this running from the command line, generating a basic using Babel. Let's see, because this probably won't work just like that. But let's actually, I mean, let's just run it and see what happens, right? So if we have, let's see, inside of bin2 deck, we'll have, let's see, sum.test, we'll have index.spec.js. Spec for our test file. Let's do the same thing. So if I do, see, it wants me to export this. So this will be very interesting rather. Using Babel. Node current. So let's do jest for browser. Running jest tests in a real browser. Install Karma and related packages. I might not need all that. Let's see. Jest is meant to be a unit testing tool. Normally you'd write small tests for parts components of a web page. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by is jest can be used as a browser based. And test them in an environment similar to a browser. You can debug your jest tests. The npm library can be integrated with your jest tests to run them in the browser. Let's see, is this any good? Are a lot of people using this? 929. Don't know. Let me see. Maybe there's a different thing. Unit test browser code. Unit testing JavaScript. init.js, Mocha, React and React Native, front end, great extent with Jest, post synchronous and asynchronous, Cypress, Mocha. So let's see Mocha, because I've heard a lot about Mocha. Might want to use that instead. I want to see some examples here. Browser support. Mocha runs in the browser. Every release of Mocha will have new builds of Mocha.js and Mocha CSS. Browser configuration. Where's like the simplest example? Okay, installation. Let's try this one out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to package.json and we're actually going to remove, we're going to npm un for uninstall, npm unjust, and we'll do a -D for dev dependency to remove it from the dev dependencies. And now let's just go ahead and get started with Mocha. So let's do npm I Mocha dev. Okay, cool. So in my editor, let's see, back in the terminal, should return 1, run tests, run cycle overview. Can we see an example of pending tests, command line usage, testing Mocha, retry tests, getting started. Let's see Mocha browser testing. Ah, look at this, a tutorial learning how to use Mocha. Okay, the spec in action, we have all this. Function pal, test.js, mocha.run, run the tests. Minimal setup. Let's make a simple implementation of POW for test to pass. Function POW, improving the spec. Okay, so let's kind of read everything that's happening here. Let's say we want to make a function POW that raises X, okay? The spec has 3 main, right? We can do all that. The development flow. Initial spec is written with test for most basic functionality. Initial implementation is created. That's all good. The full implementation with the, okay, so we have this script here. Do we also have to actually include Mocha run? Still feel like this is a little bit complicated to read because I would like to actually query something on the DOM. How do I run Mocha test in the browser? If you need to run our test in a browser, we need to set up simple HTML page to be our test runner page. The page loads Mocha. I wonder if something like Cypress would be better. Writing tests with Mocha. Okay. Using Mocha BDD interface. Is there something with like testing asynchronous code, running Mocha test, promises, callback function? Is there even, okay, let's try this. One last thing. That way this video doesn't go too long, although I hope that this is still providing some value to everyone. So Cypress, yeah, it's an end-to-end. So I'm wondering if we can just run end-to-end tests and do this. Is this easier to do? Get started. npm install. Direct download. Continuous integration. Node.js, okay. Opening the app, that's fine. Write your first E2E test. Okay. Expect true. Write a real test. Set up the application state. V function, query for an element. Contains type. Oh, I like this because this is allowing me to click on things. Okay, let's do this. And plus, I've heard very good things about Cypress, so I think it'd be good for us to get experience with this. So we're going to, again, uninstall We're going to install Mocha from dev dependencies. Okay. And now let's actually do this. npm install Cypress save dev. Okay. We can do it with Yarn. We can do it with direct download, advanced installation, some system requirements, presets. Okay. I don't think we need this. Let's just go directly into here. Okay, add a test file. Assuming you've successfully installed Cypress and opened Cypress, now it's time to add your first test. We're going to do this with create a new spec empty button. And to the name of your new spec, just accept the default name for now. Let's actually do that. Let's actually open it like it said. Yarn add, direct download, operating system, memory. Open the app and take it for a test drive. Okay, let's do this. Looks like this last piece right here is taking a little bit longer than normal. Oh, there you go. npx Cypress open. So let's just make sure that works. And then I think what we can do, let's come back here. Docs. Write tests. No, I don't want to go there. Let's go back to the main page here. Getting started, end-to-end testing. Write your first E2E test. Okay, nice. This is opening Cypress. I'm gonna have it as a private network. Okay, cool. Component testing. Create a new empty spec. Installation to ensure each state matches your expectations. I guess we can just do end-to-end testing, right? Okay, I'm clicking it. You should see a dialog. We've added the following files to your project. Acquire Cypress, E2E, set up node events, the support file that is bundled and loaded before each E2E spec. Cool. Commands.js, a support file that is useful for creating custom Cypress commands and overriding existing ones. And fixtures. Okay. I'm gonna use Edge. Okay, now it wants us to do the create new empty spec, enter a path for your spec, and this is putting it where? Is this going to be inside of, okay, run the spec. This is going to go to, okay, so this passed because it went to Cypress.io, but where are all these files, you know? I feel like it's adding a ton of stuff, but is it doing it inside of here? Ah, okay. Cool. So I'll go ahead and keep these files, whatever it added. We have index.js, index spec, E2E. Okay, so I can remove my index spec folder or file. I don't need that anymore. Okay, Cypress config, and we have Cypress. We have some fixtures. Fixtures are a great way to mock data for responses to routes. I don't think we need this right now, so I will remove fixtures. Support. Custom commands. I don't think we'll need custom commands. Just removing things to make it easier for us. I don't want to include too many things now from the get-go. Let's come right here to our empty spec. So I want to do write your first test. Update it so it fails. Watch Cypress reload in real time. Write a real test. Okay, so let's do describe. Let's call this binary to decimal converter. It converts a binary number to a decimal number. So how do we do this? We can pass the URL we want to visit. We want to visit to CY visit. Let's replace our previous test with the one below that actually visits a page. So what we'll need to do is we're going to need to be running this while localhost is running, right? So I would imagine that like I could maybe just use localhost here and visit this page. Oh, and not even that, right? It needs to be, well, I guess it depends on where you run it from. But in this case, I need to run this directly from within the folder where the code for this is. Else, if I run it from the root, I'm going to also need to specify this path. Okay. Blue pending state, only test apps that you control. That's fine. Okay, query for an element. To find this element by its contents, we'll use cy.contains. I like that. Okay, so let's do cy.contains type. So I want a query for type. Now let me see what happens when you say click on an element. Okay, click. Okay, so what if we did cy.contains returns true if string contains string and false otherwise? No, let's see how contains works rather. We can use a selector. Okay, so I want to actually get binary, and then instead of click, let me see. I imagine that there's probably going to be other, okay, click, and there should be type. Yep, type. Awesome, that's cool. Oh, hey, it looks like we're getting some messages here. Interesting. How can we handle these messages here? We'll figure it out. cy.contains binary. What if here I just want to type, let's see, so 10101. Or we can just do like 111 to make it easy. Okay. You can come back here. This is for contains. We can click on an element, make an assertion. cy.url, cy.get, get an input, type into it, and verify that the value has been updated. cy.get, okay. Maybe we should use cy.get. I like this get one better. Select an element based on its class. Get one or more DOM elements by selector or alias. Okay, so let's do cy.get binary type, right? And then we can also do cy.get. What do we know after that? Index HTML. If that worked, then we know that output, right? cy.get output dot should have dot value. Nice, that's pretty cool. Should have dot value. Should this just be 7? Like, let's see. I don't know if that will work. It might. So we have the code running, but what I need to do is I need to close this, right? I'm going to reopen this inside the actual folder. So now when I run it, it should just be at the root path. Yeah, there you go. So let's just give this a shot. This is pretty exciting. Let me open this. Okay. See what we got using this. Got Cypress open. E2E testing. Your project does not contain a default support file. Set support file to false. Okay, I don't need support file. So can we just come in here and say, let me see. Support file, error loading config. How can I set Cypress support file false? Configuration file, options, timeouts, support file. Okay, so this goes under E2E. So let's say support file, this will be false. If I come back here, is this going to do anything? Do I need to reset this? Okay, maybe we do. I guess we can try that. See how this works. E2E testing. We'll do edge. Spec. Tests are loading. Let's see. Okay. Okay, wait, expected P output to have value. So maybe, okay, so it kind of worked though. It typed everything like we wanted it to. So that's very cool. Let's keep going here. So maybe get, let me see, assert Cypress, assert text content. Assertions. Expect R to have any keys, deep value. Is there a nice way to, let me see. Knife should create an assertion. Assertions are automatically retyped. cy.get should be empty. Should dot wrap yields chainers value should have text. It'd be nice if it was like should have text. Order null empty itself is okay. Let's see, Cypress assert text should be empty, be visible, should equal 42, but when it says equal, oh no, that's incorrect usage. Contains about yields first element document containing hello. Find the first element containing text, contains apple. Is that a way? Can we use that to our advantage? If I go back to my code here, let's see, this is gonna be, it's gonna look a little small, but let's say, can we say Cypress spec cy.get output contains 7, like, is that enough? So if I say like 8 here, oh, that should fail. Beautiful. Look at that, guys. Okay, so now we can say it fails to convert the input. So now we want to essentially do the same thing. We want to visit, get binary. We'll type 111A, right? And we can say, we can expect output to contain, I think we said just an empty string. Contains cannot be passed an empty string. Okay. Let me put this on this side now. Let's see what we can do here. Let's see, Cypress assert text is empty. Expect input to be empty, should have value. So can we do that? Should have, or how about should have text? Value of an input, check for an empty element. Okay, trim is weird. Should be empty. Should not be empty assertion successful on an empty element. Let's see. Get should. Oh, nice. Look at this. Be empty. Whoa. Very nice. So look at this. We have just written 2 tests using Cypress, right? Where we have a passing test, convert a binary number to a decimal number, and also a test where it fails to convert the input, which in this case, we just know that the output should be empty because it's a failed input. So this is amazing. I definitely was not expecting to even do this much, but I'm happy that we did. And I think it's very cool that I think, learned a lot throughout the process. So let's recap what we've done, right? We completed all of the different user stories for our project. Or if we go back to our README here, right? We can enter 8 binary digits. We're notified if it doesn't pass the regex. We can see the output or an error message. We can also enter variable number of digits. And we also added unit tests using Cypress, where now we can run the test runner. We can open it up, see it actually happen in real time. So this is all very cool. I really hope that you all had a lot of fun watching this stream. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it, and I learned a lot by going through it with you all. I'm always learning a lot of new things, and it always helps me to see the perspective that new people coming into the field or even experienced people in the field bring to the table. So if you enjoyed what you saw today, make sure you like the video, subscribe to my channel. I continue doing my LeetCode videos every day, and you could expect one of these maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. I'm not really entirely sure though. This is just a test run. I just want to have fun with it. Thank you so much for watching the first video in the With Vanilla series. I hope to continue doing this, and make sure to visit the video in a little bit because I'm going to update it with links to the repo, some links to some of the other stuff that we talked about, and hopefully we can get the ball rolling, and I'd love to hear the feedback that you all have. So again, thank you all so much for joining. Hope to see you all again next time on With Vanilla.